Welcome to the Delafield Quilt Company tutorial on English paper piecing. This tutorial is meant for beginners, so if you're an experienced English paper piecer, you probably want to pass on this video. But if not, please stick around. So English paper piecing is one of those nice sewing projects that you pretty much can do anywhere. You can sew on the couch, in the car, on trips. If you need a sewing project that's portable, this is probably something that would be perfect for you. You really don't need many supplies either. You can use fabric scraps that you have on hand. You can also even make your own templates out of paper, or you can buy them as well. You also need some type of basting method. I like to use the glue-based method. You can buy glue sticks that are specific to English paper piecing, or you can even use a craft glue stick that you might have on hand. This one is nice because it's nice and skinny, so that when you are applying it to the pieces, you really don't get much waste on there. You also need a good thread. You want a thread that's a little bit thinner, that's easier for hand piecing. I like to use the Delafield 80 weight cotton thread. I find that it's nice, it's strong, but it's thin enough that you don't really see the stitches when you're done. And you also want to pick colors that coordinate with whatever fabrics that you're using. The more that it matches, the less that you're going to see it on your finished project. A few other things that are helpful, but not necessary, are clips. It's nice to be able to hold pieces together with those. You will need a little scissors. Embroidery scissors would be just fine. Perhaps a bigger scissors if you're going to hand cut your fabric out. You also need some sort of template. And again, you can make these if you want to. You just need some cardstock. I've seen people use magazine covers. Anything that you have on hand really can become a template. There's a lot of pre-cut ones, though, that are very nice. There's a variety of shapes out there that you can get pre-cut, depending on what type of English paper piecing project you're interested in doing. Today, I'm going to just be demonstrating with the hexagon, since that's one of the most popular ones. You also need a needle. A milliner's size 11 is what I like to use. It's kind of up to your preference, but I find that these needles are nice for hand piecing as well. Okay, so let's get started. So we have our fabric scrap. I've already pre-cut this. And I just want to make sure that it's about 1/4 inch around. You can cut it a little bit larger if you need to. And you certainly don't have to be perfect, because you're not going to see the edges once you have it all folded and sewn. So once you have your fabric cut, you're going to lay your template down. And now we're going to baste the fabric around the template. I find it's a little easier to do the basting when I'm sitting at a table, so I might do this in advance before maybe sitting on the couch or going on a trip. You really don't need much glue either, just a little bit on the edge. Then you're going to lift your fabric and fold it over the edge. And then I'd like to go on the opposite side of the template just to make sure that I've got the fabric nice and taut around the template. And then you can just continue around the edges, just finger pressing as you go, putting a little bit of glue down. I'm not putting much. And I'm just going to continue pressing and moving around the piece. And it's careful not to put too much of the glue, because if you really saturate it and stick your fabric down, once it's dry, it's going to be a little more challenging to take the fabric or the templates off of the fabric. So there, I've already got this piece basted. If you want to sew baste it, you could do that as well. I won't show that in this tutorial, but there are some out there that will show you how to do that. If you don't have glue, that's a perfect alternative for that. Okay, so now that my pieces have been wrapped around the templates, this is what they look like on the other side, I'm going to go ahead and sew 2 of them together. So I already have my needle threaded. Again, I'm using 80 weight cotton thread. You're going to take 2 of your pieces and place them right sides together. Make sure that your edges are lined up. You could clip this in place too if that's helpful to you, so your pieces don't slip as well. Then I'm going to just go through and start at the edge. I'm going to go through both of the pieces, just right on the edge of the fabric. I'm going to pull it most of the way through. I'm not knotting this thread, so there's no need to do that, although it might knot on its own. And I'm just going to leave probably about an inch of thread out. Then I'm going to go back through the same spot 2 more times. So essentially I end up stitching 3 times in the corner. And I'm going to do that for when I get to the other corner as well, because that helps the thread stay in place. Okay, so once you have your corner stitched 3 times, you can go ahead and I use a whip stitch to go along the rest of the edge of the piece. You could do a ladder stitch too. Some people like that method as well. I find this one just nice and simple. And once you get going, it goes pretty fast. I'm also doing about 1/8 of an inch between stitches. You don't want to do much wider because you'll start to see gaps in your piecework. If you're doing something that maybe is going to be used a little bit more, you might want to go a little tighter on those stitches. So I'm just going to keep doing the whip stitch on the side. And it does go pretty fast. Okay, again at the end, I'm going to, in the corners here, I'm going to put 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And then that should be pretty secure. So once you flip that open, you can see that it's nicely sewn. So now we're going to add another piece. It gets a little trickier once you're adding that 3rd piece in there because you essentially get the Y seam. But if you just take your time with it, it's not that hard. Again, you're going to put right sides of fabric together. I'm going to I haven't cut my thread off because I don't want to have to mess with that, but some people do that. I'm just going to feed it through the back of the seam allowance and just get it to the point where I need it on the piece. You could cut it and restart over too if you want. That might be a little bit cleaner in the end. So with the right sides together, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the last corner. I'm going to put in 3 stitches to secure the thread. And you can feel on your needle you're just missing that paper template. I think as you get to do this a little bit more frequently, you'll be able to feel that you're going through the fabric and not the paper. And again, I'm just going to whip stitch down the length. Okay, once you get to the corners, make sure you just put 3 stitches in that corner and your thread should be secure. Okay, so this side is sewn on. So now we're going to sew these 2 together and just turn it. And here, feel free to fold your template. You're not going to hurt it. It's sometimes easier because then you're not fighting it with your hands to keep it still and together. And then again, I'm going to put in the 3 stitches right at the corner. And then I'm going to continue with the whip stitch on the edge. Again on the edge, put in your 3 stitches. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this thread, but before I do that, I'm just going to, just one time, just run it underneath one of these seams, just to keep it out of the way a little bit. Okay, so there's our little mini piece. Once you have your entire piece sewn together, then feel free to take out the paper templates. You can take them out as you go if you get impatient. Sometimes I do, but I find it's a little bit easier to wait till your piece is done and then to remove it. I just think it keeps it nice and cleaner, a little bit more together. And then to remove the paper pieces, just peel back that fabric a little bit. And this is where you'll notice if you use too much glue because it'll be a little harder to pull out. And then you just pull the pieces out. And you could reuse these too if you wanted to save them. And then just carefully pull it out. Sometimes you have to fold your edges back together. Okay, another example, just of projects. You can make blankets. You can make small little art pieces. You can make pin cushions. We do have a free pattern available on our website for this pin cushion. This uses 1/2-inch hexagons, and it's entirely hand sewn. So if you're looking for a really easy beginner project, maybe check this one out under our free resources on our website. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and please consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you.